Once upon a time, there was a servant who got caught up in a scandal with the wife of a king. When the king finds out, the servant panics and hides his identity by taking a job at a church. Little does he know, the nuns there, who seem all holy and virtuous, are actually dealing with their own secret struggles and odd desires. As the servant starts to blend into their lives, a chain of events kicks off that changes not only his fate, but also the lives of the nuns around him. Before we jump into the story, I just want to say that this video is all about fun and showcasing the film's ideas. We're not here to offend anyone's beliefs, so if anything feels off, just remember it's meant for entertainment. The story kicks off with Sister Fernanda running through a forest, dragging her donkey along. She heads towards the church, passing through the village. When she arrives, another sister named Genevieve asks where Fernanda was the night before. Fernanda casually mentions she was searching for her donkey, which leads to the sisters scolding her and sending her donkey off. In the next scene, all the sisters gather for their morning prayers at the church. Later, the head nun questions Sister Maria Fernanda about her absence. Fernanda explains she was searching for her donkey. Meanwhile, Sister Genevieve chats with Sister Maria and stumbles upon a book filled with strange rituals. Curious, she reads a few lines before putting it down. Just then, Sister Alenda's dad shows up for a visit, and they start talking about her future. He wants to find a good match for her, but every potential suitor he finds seems to want a crazy high dowry. In this scene, Alessandra proposes that if she cuts back a little on her church donations, she might be able to set aside some money for her dowry. But her father firmly believes that it wouldn't be right to do that. He encourages her to concentrate on her career, reminding her that whether she marries or not, she can still have a meaningful life. This really bums Alessandra out since she always pictured a lovely life that included marriage. The next day, the three sisters come together and see a girl carrying her knitted items. Alenda talks about her chat with their dad, and she feels just as down after hearing it. Then they spot Laura, who's giving them strange looks from the balcony. Frustrated by his stare, the sisters rush inside and start tossing his stuff around. When that doesn't do the trick, they even go as far as to hit him. They then notice Father Toma from the church, who's on his way to sell the sisters knitted goods at the market. Luri runs into him and says, "I'm sorry, Father, but I can't work at this church anymore." The father replies saying that such behavior won't be tolerated again, but Lure just brushes him off and walks away. A few miles from the church, we find a squire named Lord Bruno having dinner with his wife, Francesca. However, Francesca seems more captivated by their servant, Musette, who is also eyeing her mistress. It looks like there might be something going on between them. As night falls, we see Francesca and Musette in bed together. Francesca reveals that her husband doesn't make her happy and only talks about his own achievements. They then get ready for another intimate moment. Bruno hears Macedo come into the room and tries to make a run for it by jumping out the window. But Bruno spots him and chases him through the servants' area. Macedo manages to escape, but Musette gets there first and pretends to be asleep. Bruno starts checking the servants, looking for anyone with a fast heartbeat. When he gets to Musette, he thinks she might be the one he's after. However, it's too dark for him to see clearly, so he snips off a few of his hair strands to analyze later. He's determined to find out who's behind this bold move. Once Bruno leaves, Macedo gets up and gives all the other servants a little haircut. The next morning, Bruno gathers all the servants and starts cutting their hair one by one. He begins his search, but since everyone's hair has been trimmed, he has a hard time figuring out who the culprit is. Still, he realizes that whoever it is, they're pretty smart. He then threatens everyone, saying he'll kill the person he's looking for, warning that their fate is sealed if he catches them. After that, he orders all the boys to get their hair cut short. The day after, while Francisca and Bruno are having breakfast, Bruno tells his wife that whatever she's done is totally unacceptable. He accuses her of being involved and threatens that if he finds the servant, she'll be in trouble too. Francisca, however, isn't scared and fires back that he wouldn't dare. Meanwhile, Bruno notices the way Francisca and Musette are looking at each other, and he starts to put two and two together, realizing Musette is the one he's after. Later, we see Musette working, and Francisca approaches him, trying to convince him to cause an earthquake. Bruno watches from afar, getting angrier, and tells his men to grab Musette and bring him to him. Musette realized that Bruno had seen everything, which made him bolt for his life, along with Bruno's crew. The villagers chased after him but couldn't keep up. After a long sprint through the woods, Musette ran into Father Toma. The father had a bit too much wine on his way to the market, causing his cart to go haywire. It flipped over, and all the clothes ended up floating in the river. Musette quickly jumped in to help the father and gathered up the clothes. The father was super thankful, and when he found out Musette was homeless, he got really concerned. He took Musette back to the church with him. The father offered him some food and explained that he would need to stay at the church as a deaf and mute person to avoid any trouble with the sisters. The next morning, Father Toma introduced Musette to Sister Maria, saying he had brought a guy who was great at many things but couldn't hear or speak, so he thought it was best to bring him here. Maria decided to hire him to take Lura's place. Musette started working right away. But Sister Alessandra and Fernanda didn't know about his hiring. Fernanda mistook him for an intruder and ran at him with an axe, demanding to know who he was. Just then, Sister Alessandra showed up, and Maria explained that this was their new gardener, Musette, who was deaf and mute. After hearing this, Fernanda calmed down. Later, Sister Maria and Alessandra talked about the situation, where Maria mentioned that the clothes they had knitted together were stolen from Father by robbers while he was heading to the market. She felt bad that their hard work was wasted, but reassured them that they would bring in more people to help with weaving so they could make more clothes faster. After that, Alessandra is shown teaming up with an older nun named Vio to sew clothes. While they're working, she accidentally breaks the sewing frame and heads over to Musette for a fix. Sister Genevieve catches sight of Alessandra leaving and keeps an eye on her. When Alessandra asks Musette to repair the frame, she vents her frustration, saying she's tired of being stuck there sewing and just wants to go out and enjoy life. Musette, however, stays quiet, pretending can't hear or speak in front of everyone. Alessandra knows Musette won't spill her feelings to anyone. Later that night, Father drops by Musette's room to check in on his day, mentioning that some of the sisters can be a handful, making things tough. Musette agrees that a few sisters are tricky, but reassures him that he'll be fine. Father tells him not to stress, saying they won't hurt him, but suggests he keep him updated and sing around them, acting deaf to avoid any hassle. Meanwhile, Fernanda is in her room reading when a stone hits her window. She opens it to find her childhood friend Marta there for a visit. They make their way to Alessandra's room, where the three of them start sipping on some wine. After a bit, Sister Genevieve joins in, and they all start having a good time. As they drink, the chat shifts to romance, with Marta sharing tips about a special herb that can attract guys, which gets the other three excited. The next day, while Musette is busy at work, Alessandra shows up and says, "I noticed a herb in your place. This handkerchief is for that. It helps the sweat get to the muscle." She plops down next to him and starts chatting away. After hearing Mart's sweet words the night before, her mind is buzzing with playful ideas. Out of nowhere, she leans in and kisses him. Musette takes the chance and kisses her back. They both get lost in the thrill of the moment, but then the church bells ring, catching Musette off guard. Alessandra quickly pulls herself together and heads to the church to pray. While she's there, Fernanda accidentally splashes mud on Alessandra's scarf and nails. In the next scene, Genevieve and Fernanda are doing laundry when a bubbly Alessandra joins them, saying she had an amazing time last night. Fernanda raises an eyebrow, noticing Alessandra's dirty clothes, and asks how that happened. Alessandra claims she got messy while helping the new gardener. Both women are surprised since they know Alessandra usually steers clear of hard work. Fernanda, being perceptive, suspects that Alessandra is hiding something. Next, we find Fernanda and Marta in the woods looking for the herb. They boil it down to make a liquid. Marta puts a couple of drops in Fernanda's eyes and then pricks her finger to draw some blood. She dabs the blood on her cheeks while Genevieve watches from a distance. After that, Fernanda and Marta head to Musette's room, where Fernanda playfully scares her with a knife. Together, they try to lure Musette in. He finds their antics strange, but soon he gets swept up in the excitement, and all three of them enjoy the moment to the fullest. Afterward, they leave the house together. They run into Genevieve, who asks what they're up to. They dodge her question and come up with a reason to leave, but Genevieve can tell they're hiding something. The next morning, the head bishop shows up at the church and Father Toma and Maria greet him. Meanwhile, Musette makes his way to Alessandra's room, and they both start enjoying the storm and earthquake happening outside. Out of nowhere, Sister Vio walks in, and at first they don't notice her, but Musette eventually catches sight of her, making Elise gasp in surprise. When Vio arrives, both jump. Alessandra quickly helps Vio, while Musette scrambles under the bed. Luckily, Sister Vio doesn't hear them, so she remains clueless about what's going on. Later, Musette sneaks out through the window. The next day, Genevieve spots Musette resting and decides to whip up a potion to catch his attention. Instead of putting it on her eyes, she drinks it. Then she pricks her hand and dabs the blood on her cheeks. Just then, Alessandro walks into Sato's room and asks why he lied about being dumb. Hearing Genevieve coming, Alessandra quickly ducks into a corner. Musette pretends to be asleep, but under the potion spell, Jean Vara approaches him and starts acting oddly. When Fernanda's footsteps are heard, she hides in the same corner as Alessandra, and they're both shocked to see each other. Fernanda walks into the room, ties Musette's hands, and blindfolds him with a knife in hand. She starts to scare him into the forest, while Alessandra and Geneve sneak along behind them. By the time they hit the forest's heart, it's dark, and they spot a fire with a bunch of girls dancing around it, completely naked while Musette is tied up nearby. Alessandra asks, "What's going on here?" Geneve responds, "I read somewhere that girls can gain witch powers by sacrificing humans." They realize Fernanda has been sneaking here every day, dressed as a donkey, and now Mart is mixed up in it too. They find out that Mart and Fernanda have been sacrificed. Just when they think all hope is lost, Musette, panicking, cries out, "Leave me!" This shows he can hear and speak after all. In a tipsy moment, Genevieve takes off her clothes and joins the other girls in their dance. The sight sends the girls running, and Mart confronts Genevieve, asking what she's doing there. Meanwhile, Fernanda is about to sacrifice Musette when Alessandra shows up, grabs the knife from Fernanda, and saves Musette. But in the chaos, Genevieve ends up getting killed. During a scuffle between Vara and Mart, Genevieve hits Mart with a stick, knocking him out. She quickly puts on his clothes and escapes with the donkey to the church. Once there, she starts yelling that Fernanda is a witch. Father Bishop hears her and comes out, and Genevieve tells him that Fernanda is a witch. Fernanda, Alessandra, and Musette show up at the scene. Alessandra points a finger at Father, accusing him of lying and saying she took the herb today, which is why she's rambling like a drunk. But Genevieve jumps in, insisting, "No way, I'm telling the truth. They're all in cahoots, and both of them have gotten cozy with the gardener." This makes Father Bishop call out for Maria, wanting to know what's going on. Just then, Father Toma steps out of Maria's room, leaving everyone stunned. Father Bishop starts to piece together what's been happening in the church. The next day, he goes on a punishment spree, dealing with everyone one by one, and they all beg God for forgiveness. Father Toma gets the worst of it for abusing his authority and is sent off to a men's asylum while Musette is taken back home. He's handed over to Lord Bruno, who has his soldiers arrest him. After that, the three sisters start apologizing to each other. Sister Genevieve asks Fernanda for forgiveness too. They begin to worry about Musette, fearing Lord Bruno might harm him, and they come up with a plan to save him. Meanwhile, Musette is locked up, and Lord Bruno pays her a visit, saying he's tied his wife to dogs and wild animals for a slow, painful end, and now it's his turn. But he adds that he won't kill him, he'll just make him suffer longer. With that, he walks away. Musette begs the soldiers his freedom, but they just laugh at him. Eventually, one soldier starts joking about a candle burning on a turtle. They follow it, completely unaware that the sisters had set the turtle free. As soon as they leave, the three sisters swoop in, rescue Musette, swap him out with a dummy dressed in their clothes, and then dash into the forest. Maria arrives to meet Toma, bringing along her donkey, and they're both overjoyed because they've fallen in love and can't bear to be apart. Suddenly, they hear some noises and quickly hide. Fernanda spots her donkey and wonders how it ended up there, but Genevieve takes it away. Once they leave, Maria and Toma come out, realizing that the three sisters have set Musette free. They exchange knowing smiles at the sisters' antics and decide to leave together. And that wraps up the story. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you're new to our channel, don't forget to like the video and subscribe.